So this is what... Oh, I didn't do Orco. Okay, yeah, when I copied and pasted that over, I haven't done any of that, so let's fix that. Before we get started on episode 2, I thought it might be a good idea, for the sake of understanding and clarity, to maybe discuss a little bit about what this story is about. It didn't dawn on me until earlier this week that perhaps there might be some people watching this who don't know the story of Moses and the Brazen Serpent. So, and as I'm going to be going in depth with this until this piece is finished, it might be a good idea for everybody to be on the same page. So, this is the illustration by Gustave Doré called Moses and the Brazen Serpent. And as you can see, I consider it kind of a masterpiece, especially in expressing emotion. You can see the anguish on people's faces. You can see their tortured bodies. You can see some people are dead. Some people are reaching, trying to touch the brazen serpent. You can see Moses pointing toward it. And you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, for me, if I had no idea what this story was about, this illustration would be, the picture is worth 1,000 questions. What's going on here? What's happening? Why is there a brazen serpent attached to a pole? Why are people trying to reach it? Where do these snakes come from? Why are some people looking like they're dead? Why is Moses pointing toward it? What's going on in the journey of the Israelites that this even had to happen? So, in order for me to be able to tell that story, I have to know that story. Now, this illustration only is basically depicting what's happened in one verse, and that is in the Old Testament, in the book of Numbers, chapter 21, verse 9. And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Now, that illustration shows everything that's described in that verse perfectly, right? But I want to know more about the story. So I looked it up, and there's only 6 verses that deal with this, the entire story here. And it's in Numbers 21, verses 4 through 9. I'm going to read this real quick so that you guys all know what's going on with this. And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom, and the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way. So that kind of piqued my interest right away after I read that verse. Like, well, what about the way is so discouraging? So I did a Google search on the probable route that the Israelites were taking, and I got this description. The terrain in Numbers 21, 4 through 5 is a harsh, hot, and arid desert landscape, likely traversing the Araba Valley, moving south from Mount Hor towards the Red Sea. To detour around Edom, the Israelites experienced a barren, mountainous, and sandy region that caused extreme fatigue, leading to impatience and murmuring. The area is described as a miserable and scorched earth wilderness, characterized by steep mountains and arid deserts. It was a long, arduous, and circuitous journey, with a detour through the severe terrain increasing the logistical difficulties of food and water scarcity. This path forced the Israelites away from a direct route to Canaan, subjecting them to some of the worst desert conditions in the region. So now I know why they were discouraged. And that journeying from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea, that's the opening of the piece. You know, they're journeying, and then they're discouraged because of the way. I'm trying to put that discouragement in there. I'm trying to, they're miserable. So that gives me a lot of evocative emotions that I can communicate musically. And the people spake against God and against Moses Wherefore have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. I'm assuming they're talking about manna. And as happens when the God of the Old Testament gets complained about, and the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. That's a very, very succinct sentence, one verse, but there are three big things happening there. The Lord sent fiery serpents. The serpents bit the people, and the people died. I could spend 10, 15 minutes on just describing musically those three things happening in that one verse. I'm not going to do that. I don't want this to be that long, but just saying that so much action and things happening right there just in that one verse that I could spend a lot of time describing that musically. Therefore the people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against thee. Pray unto the Lord that he take away the serpents from us." And Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole. And it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live." And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. So the entire story happens in those 6 verses. And it's open to so much interpretation to how I want to tell that story. There's so many things that happen there and there's so many different ways I could express it musically. It's sort of like if you take 10 different painters and ask them to paint the same flower, you're going to get 10 different interpretations of that flower. You know, there might be different textures, different techniques, different color palettes, different interpretations of that object, right? The same thing is going to be this way. And I can think of 10 different ways I can express half of these verses in music. But you're going to be with me as I choose and as we develop and progress and actually compose this. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up, because in the upcoming weeks, as I discuss like certain verses that I'm having trouble, or I want to show, hey, this is how I described this action in the story. You guys now know what that story is about and what's happening in the story. So thanks for the patience for this clarification and explanation. Let's get back on to episode 2. You know how I said when I was going to be discussing some of the things that are maybe frustrating me or I'm struggling with? This is one of those things. So as I discussed in the first episode, I really fell in love with these strings, and it's really inspired me to maybe redo the beginning of this piece. I wanted to use these soft strings coming in, and then, and then I was going to bring in the, here's the brass. There's a big, I'm planning to play through this, but my issue that I'm having is that getting from, so originally the choir comes in A minor, which is fine, and this section that I've made the new beginning is in E minor. So I need to modulate from E minor to A minor, and there's 100 ways to do it, and I already came up with a really kind of a very cool way to do it, but it seemed to me like it was a little too strong on the misery of the children of Israel going through. So I'm gonna play from the beginning, and I'm gonna stop where I've added a new section, and I'm gonna go to the other section that I should probably make 2 versions of this just so I could do this, but okay. So I'm gonna hit play, and then I'm gonna stop where I want to stop, and I'm going to go to the original modulation section that I came up with to introduce the choir. And then I'll play you the second idea that I had for modulating to get to the choir. And I think that my second one I'm not nearly as happy with as I am with the first. But I kind of feel like I didn't want to, stress the misery and the woe and the suffering they're going through that quick on, but I guess we'll see. Okay, I'm going to shut up and just play. Not sure what happened to the high strings there, but we'll get that fixed. Do a trill thing before I do that. Okay. An idea just popped in my head, so. That's right here. Now that's where I'm going to stop, because that right there was where I ended the first. This was the ending of my second section before. Now I'm going to scooch forward to this is where I took it from this point on, right here. We're going to start 82. So we come in. Now we're in 4/4 now. Oh, I guess we're doing 4/4. That needs to be smoother. So here I come with my original idea with the introduction where I set the stage for the choir to come in. Okay. And but this is what then I came up like, well, I didn't want to make that misery so strong before the choir comes in. So I thought, well, let me redo that transition, that modulation, and this is what I came up with. And I'm not at all as happy with it as I did it yesterday, and then today I'm like, oh, I'm not really liking this as much. So I'm probably not going to. So this is my second attempt at a transition. I have this little dialogue going on between the bassoon. See, that it works, but it's, I don't know. So if I do away with this second attempt, which I probably will, because it's not. I mean, I like this dialogue that happens between the bassoon and the English horn, and it does kind of set a more Middle Eastern kind of feel. It's got some of the Phrygian type of things going on. It's still. I mean, I might still use that maybe later in the piece, but to me, it just is too long of, I mean, it takes 15 measures to get from where I ended here to establishing the new key. And I did a very simple device where I make the one in it's usually, this is a E minor chord. I make it into an E major chord, and then I put a dominant seventh note to make this the 5 of the new key, so it's easily a transition sting. I mean, it's a really simple device. It works, but it's not as, I don't know. There's something about this other section that I did with the low strings doing their thing here. With some of the dissonances and the building and kind of it sounds more suffering like, right? I think I like this better, even though. My issue though is that yeah, no, I think it'll work. But MuseScore has been amazing. But my only gripe with MuseScore is something that I'll describe here. Okay, so in MuseScore, when you go from say pianissimo to piano, it's a kind of a gradual thing. From piano to mezzo piano, it's a kind of a gradual thing. There's not a huge difference between those, between those variances. I mean, it's noticeable, but it's not like, right? But between mezzo piano and mezzo forte, oh my gosh, it's like here's the gradualness of the other ones, and this one's like this. I'll show you. So I'm going to change this little chimes to mezzo piano, okay, and I'll play it. Okay. Now you've heard that. I'm going to change it to mezzo forte and play it. It's drastically louder. I'll give you an example from say mezzo forte. So let's play that again. Right? I'll do forte. Whoops. It's noticeably louder, but it's not that drastically different from mezzo forte to forte. Whereas from mezzo piano, it's softer, right? It's nice and soft. And then this is, it seems like, to me it just seems like too much of a bump. If I could have a medium between the two, like, if they had just a mezzo instead of like a mezzo piano or mezzo forte, just a mezzo dynamic, that would be great. But they don't, and they won't. So anyway, enough of griping. Yeah, I think I'm going to stow this dialogue section between the bassoon and the English horn into I have a sketch document that has, this is where all my original ideas are too for this. I'll just add this to there. The thing is, there's all this momentum already happening here with the brass. Like if I start here, right? You got the trumpets making there. And there's this movement going on with the violins and the flutes. But then if I go directly to something that's more, I guess I could do that and then immediately bring in that section, which I could, this lower string section. But my issue with that is I've interrupted this momentum that's been happening with this build-up of the instruments, and now I'm going back down to something very primal, I guess. So okay, so I added that. I'm not sure why all of my clefs changed over here, but that's okay. This is just a sketch. This is just like a sketch pad of the different ideas and themes and things like that. So, but I have saved my little dialogue section, my modulation section from E minor to A minor using this little dialogue into my sketches. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to close that, go back into my opening one. Maybe I should delete this, put this as here, and then do a crescendo from there. How about that? Because that's what everybody else is already at. We're already at, yeah, okay. Okay, let's go back to 41. Sorry guys, this is what you get to experience with me. There we go. So this is what oh. I didn't do Arco. Okay, yeah, when I copied and pasted that over, I haven't done any of that. So let's fix that. Let's make the Arco here. Yeah, and then here we'll make that Arco as well. I wish that this would be bigger. I've already fixed it in the styles and it whatever, but it still keeps it the way it is. Okay, so let's go back to, oh, not there, Jerry. Let's go back to 50. Wow, I gotta set my dynamics. I didn't do it. So we're gonna do here. And then we'll do here. Let them come up and be loud. This is where it gets really cool. I love this transition. I love this modulation to A minor, but it feels like it's almost too wrenching. It's like I'm kind of maybe I'm establishing the misery before the choir comes in, which I guess that's fine. But the choir doesn't match the intensity of this, but that's okay. Maybe this is the stuff that has to happen before they start thinking, wow, we really feel bad. I don't know. This is too much of a jarring thing, so this will... Yeah, I gotta fix that. That's way too loud. That's way too loud. So I'm gonna make this into mezzo forte. Save that. Let's go back to 64 or 63. Yeah, that works better. I still want the chimes to be a bit louder, so I'm going to make that chimes. See, that's what I mean. It's a difference between not being able to hear it in the score or it's overpowering the score. So let's start from here. Come on. Go to 65. See? That forte is so much louder than the mezzo forte. Like here, there's an example. We'll do that again. This time. You can barely hear it. Let's go back to 65. Okay, so here's the chime at mezzo forte. You barely hear it. It's there, but you barely hear it. But now if I change that to forte, which is just one step up in the dynamic thing, it's too much. I can fix it later whenever I do this mix, but that's okay. If that's the case, I think I'll do the timpani as forte as well. That's what that sounds like. Yeah, that's fine. Then we bring in the quiet piano and the, which is still keeping up with that kind of pulse, but which stops when the choir comes in. Yeah, that works better. Yeah. If I wasn't afraid of that being too loud, I would make that chime a little louder there too, so. Anyway. But now, I've got this open-ended thing here. I'm in E minor, or A minor. That's A minor, sorry. And I could bring back in the wind type of strings that I was doing originally, but that doesn't take me to where I want to go. There needs to be, it needs to build, and maybe it doesn't have to build so quickly, but it still need to build. I need to bring back some of this torture and whatever here in the mix. Not necessarily the same, I'm not going to quote the same material, but that type of intensity needs to grow and grow and grow until we get the snakes coming in. Until they complain to Moses. I'm not 100% sure if I won't bring in the choir to do as the voice of the children of Israel. I might actually compose some more choral pieces, but the thing is, then it would be my lyrics, or it would at least be lyrics out of the passage of scripture. But I don't know if that's necessary. An orchestral tone poem doesn't necessarily have to have the words to express what's going on. It shouldn't, at least. So I'm not sure. I'll think about that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will hopefully have this all done. At least I'm hoping I can cover this in 4 episodes.